Clyde Mallinson is an independent energy analyst, and he joins us now to unpack some of these energy questions. Clyde, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Good to have you on the program.
Great to be here.
All right, on the face of it, it sounds like great news that a lot of this energy in the hands of the private sector, private people, can come back into the grid to be purchased by Eskom.
Well, I don't know that there's that much available. We're talking here about diesel generator sets and things that the mines normally use in standby. So if there were load shedding or if they're having to curtail, they're probably using those facilities themselves anyway. But there will be occasions when they're not using them, where Eskom are saying, please bring them on, we would like to do that now. But it'll be expensive because those standby facilities that the mines have, the shopping centres, the generator sets, they burn diesel. You've heard them. If you go to a shopping centre and it's load shedding, you'll hear a great big thunderous diesel generator. So it'll help, but it's a bit like, it's not a lot. It's not the answer.
So the Minerals Council, Chamber of Mines as it was called, talking about pipeline projects, 3,900 megawatts of energy from renewables. Is it timing that'll be the question, but that will then be a significant shift because they're using, what, a third of Eskom's power at this stage?
I'm not sure that it's a third. It might have been a third at their peak, but it's probably less now. A lot of the industry has slowed down and shut down, in fact, some of the smelters. But it's great that they're looking at doing that, but it's not particularly aspirational in my book. It's too little. I don't want to say it's too late. They've been held back from doing this in the past. So it's great, but I would like to see each of the metros and collectively all of the municipalities doing exactly the same. We don't have to rely on the mining sector to sort out its energy problems. Each of the metros could pretend it was a big mining house and do exactly the same. And that way, it would benefit the people in the metro and it would stop load shedding in the metro. So I would actually prefer to see a parallel effort, but a huge effort from the metros and the bigger towns and cities to procure for themselves.
All right, so people at home are probably tired of the load shedding and they're wondering, are we at the worst yet, or is there still pain to come?
Well, I think Eskom put out an estimate of the next 12 months, and I'm afraid it looks bleak. They actually are now saying we will have load shedding at a certain stage, at a certain level. There's no question we will have load shedding, but, and this is the scary bit, it could be much worse than our base case scenario. So they're kind of saying, yes, there will be load shedding, but it may actually be a lot worse than our kind of baseline. And they've got a baseline, then they've got a kind of a middle one where they have an extra 1.5 gigawatts that's not available. And then they've got a horror scenario where these 3 gigawatts not available, in addition to what they're planning to be unplanned breakdowns. I've never seen anything like it. Actually, I'd hate to be in a position having to plan for unplanned breakdowns.
I want to go back to this contribution of energy into the grid because more and more people are going the renewable route. What had been the issue about getting energy back into the grid? I believe it wasn't allowed. What was the problem? Was it Eskom?
Look, there's a number of different levels. Yeah. So at a residential level, you have to, if you want to put energy back into the grid, you have to have some arrangement with your local supplier, municipality, city power, and there has to be a feed-in tariff structure. One of the problems always has been the risk factor. That let's say they're shutting down an area and they want to do maintenance and you have solar on your roof and you're feeding back into the grid. But that was slightly trumped up because all of the inverters and the ways it's installed these days, if your system detects that there's no power on the grid, it doesn't allow your system to inject power into the grid. So I don't want to say it was an excuse, but it's something that's evolving. But that's can be done on a very interesting scale, but it's still too small to sort out our needs. We need at the moment to be building probably about 5 gigawatts of solar per year, about 3 gigawatts of wind, and this is very, very important, about 2 gigawatts of storage. We can't do wind and solar without storage going forward, because we all know that it doesn't always, the sun we know doesn't shine at night, and the wind doesn't always blow, and the answer to that is you have storage. Like you do at your home. If you've got solar on your roof, if you're lucky enough, what do you have as well? Probably is a battery.
I see the United Kingdom are talking about building a new nuclear reactor. We see there was an article I saw about, I think Germany and maybe even America, had they built nuclear reactors, they'd be cleaner, much quicker. Is there not an argument for us to go nuclear as well?
Well, the poor people in the UK don't have any sunshine, as we know, so they've got a problem much bigger than ours. We're fortunate in the fact that we can meet all our needs and then some purely with wind, solar and storage. We don't need nuclear, and anyway, nuclear will take 10, 15 years. So even if we could do it, and there's an interesting hypothesis, in the future we'll be dominated by wind, solar and storage, different kinds of storage, underground pumped hydro, batteries, vanadium flow batteries, gravity batteries. In the future we'll have that. But one of the interesting things is when you've got a small amount of nuclear in that future, every 18 months it has to be shut down for 5 weeks to refuel. And the question is, what covers it while it's refueling? And the answer is wind and solar and storage cover it. And then the question is, well, if they can cover it for 5 weeks, can't they cover it for 10 weeks or 10 years? And so some of these things like nuclear work well when there's lots of them. And they can it's almost like a bench in rugby with 6 nuclear and only 2 backs. But when you're playing a game of sevens, you don't really want a retired prop on your bench. He's going to be out of place, and that's what nuclear is going to look like in the future.
So these coal powered stations that we have at the moment, is the plan then we must phase those out over time? We've got huge coal resources. Right. What do we do?
Right, well the plan isn't that we must phase them out as we go forward. The plan is that we will phase them out, if I may put it that way. They've reached end of life, many of them. And they've done a great service to us. We've built a lot of our economy on the back of coal. I'm actually a geologist, so it's, coal's done well. But what's happening now is that there are better, cleaner and cheaper alternatives. And the mistake we're making at the moment is we're trying to plug the gap. We're saying when one coal station falls over, as it were, when one old car has flat tires, we're then panicking and rushing to fill that gap. And what we need to do is build the new to make space for the coal fleet to be retired with dignity, almost like parents. We've got a funeral policy for you. We're gonna give you a dignified burial, and we're going to make sure all the people who are associated with you get themselves nice jobs in this new sector that's being created. And that's very different. It's creating the headroom that will allow us to retire the coal fleet with dignity.
All right. Do you get a sense that we're starting to make the right decisions, that Eskom is doing the best it can under the circumstances, because they've been under fire quite a bit?
Definitely making the right decisions now. But what worries me is our ability to implement the decisions that we're making now. In other words, our construction, engineering, procurement capacity on building the new wind, solar and storage has been dormant for some time. Our local manufacturing has been dormant. Factories have closed because we weren't carrying on with the program. And that's to me is going to be the bottleneck. It's going to be a case of how quickly can we build the stuff that we need to build now that the red tape has been removed.
Clyde, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And there's a bit of hope there. Thanks so much indeed.
Absolutely. There's a fantastic future awaits us of energy abundance.
Yeah, we just do the right things, I guess. Yep. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Thanks for your time. All right, that's Clyde Mallinson, who's an independent energy analyst, joining us, talking about energy solutions. The President has said that he welcomes private contributions to the energy grid. But Clyde was saying this is good, but it's definitely not enough. We need to be thinking wind and solar and storage.